February the 1st, 1979. Punk hardman Sid Vicious wakes up in a New York jail charged with murder. But in spite of the charge, he'll soon be a free man.
He was released into the custody of his mother, who then, goes out and buys drugs for her son.
He was trying on clothes, playing air guitar, jumping around.
Both hands are just dripping with blood.
He wanted her to inject into him, and she said no, she wouldn't do that.
In 24 hours, Sid Vicious will be dead from a fatal overdose of heroin.
I was part and parcel of supplying him with something which probably was responsible for killing him off.
February the 1st, 1979. Sid Vicious is held at the Rikers Island detention center just across from Manhattan, New York. This is the beginning of his last 24 hours alive. For Sid, this is a living nightmare. He's charged with murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but has no recollection of the attack. He'd been out of his mind on drugs, but all he remembers is that when he woke up, Nancy was dead. Now one thought terrorizes him. Did he do it? For 55 days, Sid, a heroin addict, has gone through the agony of withdrawal. On top of all this, he's been subjected to humiliating attacks.
He apparently was raped, he was abused, he was beaten up. Everything that is your worst nightmare that would happen to you in prison. I mean, how could anybody cope with that?
At dawn, Sid is woken and taken from his cell. He's hoping the nightmare is over and that he'll never have to return to prison. His lawyers believe they can beat the murder charge, and later today they'll make their case to get him out on bail. Sid's hearing is scheduled for noon.
I was dealing with a 21-year-old kid, transplanted from the UK to the United States in a big problem.
As Sid leaves Rikers Island behind him, the clock is ticking on his final day. Step back 3 years to London, 1976. It's the summer that Britain found punk.
It was a fashion thing, it was a music thing, and I just think everybody just locked onto the same vibe at the same time. I think that's what it was all about, that's what punk was, and I don't really think... OK, we had a dwarf, there was Helen, yes, there was a lot of gay guys there, yes, there were a few sort of like lesbians, yes, there was some hookers. It was this whole mix, but that was London at the time. I mean, this is what was going on. Everyone was young, we were all doing really strange things.
It was very outrageous for that time. I mean, we really pissed a lot of people off just because of the way we looked.
Back then, Sid Vicious was a shy 19-year-old called John Simon Ritchie.
He looked more like a sort of James Dean character. He had like slick black hair, big sort of studded wristband. Sid had this shy little boy, lost childlike quality, I think he had about him.
Ritchie was drawn to the emerging punk scene and started hanging out at the Sex Clothes shop on King's Road.
It was a place where something magical might happen if you hung around long enough. And I think that was always a kind of gave everybody a sense of purpose to dwell and to make that pilgrimage from wherever in the UK to this store.
John Ritchie was one of the many punks who made that pilgrimage.
I always liked him, I have to say, and there was something warm about him. He was just very genuinely just a nice person. I mean, so, yeah, he stuck around. I mean, I think he was probably stealing the clothes as much as anybody else was.
John Ritchie was close to Punk's inner circle. One of his best mates was John Lydon, the lead singer of the notorious band the Sex Pistols.
He pushed himself into the scene, you know, so that when the papers started to write about the Pistols and the whole punk thing, you know, he was one of the first things that were mentioned. He went hand in hand with the sort of growth of punk and particularly Pistols.
He didn't quite know what he wanted to do, Sid, but you just knew he was waiting to sort of like fit in somewhere.
When the group did set out to play in a number of pubs around London, this tall, somewhat stalwart creature did show up, and we nicknamed him.
Lydon was given the name Johnny Rotten after his bad teeth, while Ritchie was given the name Sid Vicious, not because of any violent tendencies, but after Lydon's pet hamster, Vicious. It was all a bit of a joke.
Yeah, he was around, you'd see him, and I just thought he was a bit of a burp, to be honest.
Sid was complete marshmallow, really, you know. He's like, we were like playing with children and playing games. And he loved all of that, and like, and he was a big softie.
Now the shy and slightly goofy John Simon Ritchie had a new name, Sid Vicious. He'd spend the rest of his life trying to live up to it. Sid has 20 hours left to live. He's escorted from Rikers Island to the New York Criminal Court. He's been accused of murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but his lawyers are certain they can get him out on bail. They argue that Sid is innocent and that Nancy was probably killed by a drug dealer who wanted to steal her money.
There were a number of other people who lived in the area, in the hotel, and who were supplying drugs to these people, who had opportunities and access to these people. And it was not unlikely that someone could have come in and attempted to assault them. We were very optimistic that the prosecution would not be in a position to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was responsible.
Sid was gonna get off, we all hoped. Bailey was gonna do an excellent job. His bill was gonna be astronomic. And Sid was gonna play Las Vegas and pay for it. That was it.
But first, Sid's lawyers have to get him out of jail. They persuade the judge to release him, but only if someone can stump up £30,000 in bail money.
I had the money. It wasn't a question. I was not going to use it. I used it immediately.
At 10 a.m., Sid is released.
He was certainly relieved to know he was being released. The last thing that I said to him was, I'll be in touch with you, just be careful.
Sid is free, and his lawyers set about preparing his defense. But in less than 19 hours, Sid will be dead. 2 years earlier, and punk was declaring anarchy in the UK. Some saw it as a threat to the very foundations of civilization. The Sex Pistols were at the front line of the movement, and Sid was in the crowd at every gig, living up to his new nickname.
Whenever we played, there would seem to be some kind of altercation going on, which seemed to be Sid trying to get a bit of the limelight for himself.
Sid was determined to make his mark and create his own brand of anarchy. In one incident, he attacked a rock critic with a bike chain just because he'd given his favourite band a bad write-up.
Just be completely destructive and you'd get really pissed, really out of it, start lunging around. You know, usually if he did start a fight, he was one who got worse anyway.
Sid was one of these extraordinary people who could have had the words willing prey tattooed on his forehead, because that's what he really was.
And it seemed to me he had this kind of slightly masochistic quality about him, that he'd like to start a fight so maybe in the end he would get an hiding, and he did get a hiding from a good few people that he picked on. He picked on the wrong blokes.
He had a gift for provocation. He did invent that strange kind of dance that became known as the pogo.
Sid's violent outbursts got him noticed and eventually won him his dream job. When bass player Glenn Matlock left the band, McLaren chose Sid as his replacement.
Sid was the most perfect choice to move into that part. I mean, as much as he really couldn't play anything. But hey, listen, didn't matter, did it? It was all about the image.
Becoming a Sex Pistol, well, I mean, it's probably a dream come true in a way. You know, from being their #1 fan, he was now in the band.
There was no question you couldn't take your eyes off him. He shone so much more brightly than anyone else. When he ever boarded the stage, the audience would always squeeze themselves all over to the left side, because all they wanted to do was be as close as possible to Sid. And Sid would spend sometimes half the show constantly talking to them.
Within months of joining the band, Sid had become the main attraction, turning his stage act into a bloody sideshow.
I just remember at one point him sitting on the bar and he was just covered in blood. I think he'd just broken the bottle and he just started slashing himself.
I used to sort of like put cigarettes on my arm and watch them burn down, and I used to slash that open. You know, I used to rip Coke cans in half to get the jagged edge so you could get a real nice cut and stuff. And I'd never seen Sid doing any of that until he'd seen me doing it.
Charles Wells is a juvenile psychologist who studied Sid's life.
People in the audience would look at him horrified. What kind of person would do this? And their response feeds his sense of self as being different, as being special. He's focused his energies and his efforts on creating an identity, one which doesn't seem to be true to who he perhaps really was. He's trapped by this, because in the end, it's what people want to see. They don't want to see who you really are.
The quiet, shy John Simon Ritchie had transformed himself into the ultimate punk icon, Sid Vicious. Sid has 17 hours left to live. He's out on bail expecting a hero's welcome. But McLaren, who's organised Sid's release, isn't there to meet him. He's in London, being sued by John Lydon for control of the Sex Pistols.
I regret not having been there, but, you know, I had a bloody huge court case mounting on my head at the same time. And you couldn't be in both places at once. It was really hard.
In fact, as Sid walks free, he's met by just his mum, Anne, and an old friend, Peter Kodik.
I recall that moment so well because I think now, when I look back on it, I would preferred him to stay in Rikers Island.
Sid's had a crippling heroin addiction for a year now. In prison, he was denied access to the drug. Now, he's only got one thing on his mind.
Walking down the street is like, I think, you know, Sid kept saying, you know, did you get it? Did you get it, Mom? Did you get it? Yeah. Yes, Sid, you know? Okay. Walk, faster, faster.
Sid is anxious to get to his mother's hotel, a few blocks from the courthouse. Just before his release, his mum told the papers that what Sid was looking forward to the most was a giant ice cream. But in a bizarre act of motherly love, she's bought her son what he really wants: heroin. It's only an hour since Sid was released on bail with a murder charge hanging over his head. In 16 hours, he'll kill himself. Or that's how the story goes. But according to one eyewitness, Sid didn't kill himself. He was killed by someone else. Sid Vicious has 16 hours left to live. He's been released on bail accused of murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. Sid's body is clean of drugs for the first time in years, but not for long. Sid's with his mum and a friend, Peter Kodik. His mum's bought him heroin he's now desperate to inject.
He was released into the custody of his mother, who then, goes out and buys drugs for her son. You know, it's unbelievable to me that that would have happened.
Because of heroin as being an addictive substance, in some ways it keeps Sid in the relationship with his mother and perhaps prevents him from truly separating and achieving independence.
For as long as they can both remember, Sid and his mum have taken drugs together. Soon those drugs will kill her only son. Sid Vicious was born in South London on May the 27th, 1957. His father left home when he was 2 years old. In his absence, Sid forged a strong bond with his mother. She was more of a friend than a parent, and she came to dominate Sid's life.
She was poor, and she had a kid. So it wasn't even like she was a single working mother. It was just Sid and Ann, you know? And she was kind of a hippie or a beatnik, I suppose. Free spirit.
Sid's mum led a chaotic life, moving from place to place and doing whatever she had to survive.
And then she moved to Ibiza, Spain for a little while and took Sid with her.
Because she'd been part of the hippie movement back home in England, she would charge sailors to roll joints. That was her way of kind of hustling a couple of quid to keep the kid in a slightly better life.
One of the possible consequences is, again, finding it difficult to develop a clear identity. And if a young person has never stayed in a place long enough to establish long enough relationships with peers, then they will miss out on that, and it will be perhaps more difficult for them to say, you know, who am I?
She heard a rumor from a friend of hers that if you were heroin dependent or drug dependent, you could get a free flat. You could be moved up the housing list in like no time. So she just literally said she was heroin dependent, and she got this flat. Of course, the downside to that is you're living in a world surrounded by heroin dependent people.
By the time Sid was 7, his mum was addicted to heroin.
I visited his house where his mother lived. His mother was a dope dealer. It was quite clear. She was always in the kitchen cooking up something or other.
It would have been a very obvious and regular sight to come home and find Mum flaked across 2 mattresses with a syringe in one arm.
I mean, my first memory of him is sort of like people emptying pills into his hands and him just shoving it in his mouth and then asking what the pills were.
Seeing his mother using a needle encouraged teenage Sid to experiment.
Some people are taking speed or amphetamine sulfate, and some people are experimenting with it. And because Mum's got things like old metal syringes that you've got to boil, wash, and you can use 100 or 1,000 times, he's turning up and going, actually, man, you get a better kick out of it if you inject it.
Well, I'd take mass amounts of anything. It'd take downers, speeds, dexys, bombers, blues, amphetamine sulfate, which was, of course, the drug of choice of all punks and everything, and we all used to take loads of that. Anything that would be stuck in front of him, Sid would inject. So I said, I mean, you know, it could be Tuinol, it could be speeds, cocaine, heroin. The more things, the better, really.
Some images that are completely burned on my memory forever from that period, and one of them is Anne's boyfriend selling Sid drugs, heroin, literally in front of me. And I thought, you know, that was it as far as I was concerned. I mean, there was no clearer picture of what it was all about.
By his own admission, Sid injected speed up to 14 times a day.
It's highly significant that his mother was a heroin addict in the past. The adults in a child's relationship act as models. And, for instance, in a home where there is a lot of open drug use, then this would become normal for that child.
Despite the unconventional upbringing, Sid and his mother were very close. But her inability to say no to her son would end in tragedy. Sid has 13 hours left to live. He arrives at his mother's hotel, eager to take the heroin she bought for him.
He's back out, faced with things he was faced with before. Often addicts talk about their drug as their best friend, their lover.
Sid and his mum know he's taking a massive risk injecting a large dose of heroin, especially now his body's clean.
One could see his mother supplying him with drugs as an act of care. Perhaps she recognized the pain he was in psychologically and emotionally and was doing what she could to take the pain away. There is this association with happier times in his life, the times that he's used with his lover Nancy, and there could even be a recreation of that in using it with other people who he counts as his close friends and his family.
Michael Baden is a heroin expert and the coroner who carried out the autopsy on Sid's body.
In 55 days, he wouldn't have had any tolerance left, and he would have had to have started off at a low dose of heroin. It's very common for people who have been addicted to heroin, who go to jail. If they're not careful on their first dose, they can die.
What had been sold to her was absolute rubbish.
I'm sorry, Simon.
It's rubbish.
I'm sorry, Simon.
Sorry? You think I want to hear sorry? Shut up.
Which left him even more disappointed, even more angry. Everything that he was waiting for, this big hit that he was waiting for after he got out of the court, wasn't going to happen.
Peter, you know how I like your photography?
Desperate for a fix, Sid turns to his friend, Peter Kodik.
Sort me out, yeah? Peter?
As a rock photographer, Kodik knows the New York drug scene, and Sid knows he can be relied upon to source high-grade heroin, paid for by his mum.
That's what I want to hear. Brilliant.
I said I'd see what I could do, and I'd see him later on that evening. She probably must have given me, say, between, let's say, $100, $150.
Kodik leaves to score the heroin Sid craves. Sid waits with his mother. Even though she now seems happy to supply her son with the drug, she wasn't the one who got him hooked. For that, Sid can thank the other woman in his life, Nancy. Two years earlier, and just weeks after joining the Sex Pistols, Sid's notorious antics have put him at the forefront of punk. One night, he ended up crashed out on the floor with his mate Johnny Rotten and an American groupie called Nancy Spungen.
She rolled over to John and tried to fuck him. And I think he wasn't cooperative. And so she rolled the other way, and Sid was. And I think that was it, really. Sid lost his virginity to Nancy. As a second choice, I have to say.
Nancy had come to London on a mission to bed a Sex Pistol, and now she'd got one, she wasn't going to let him go.
Hey, do you want to make a pornographic movie? Give us £100.
Sid was very immature, he was very insecure, and she was ideal for him, you know, because he was one saying that you're the star, and which, you know, when you're insecure is what you need.
Sid was like really shining out, and John was being like nothing. You know, he just wasn't giving it anymore.
Once more, Sid had put his trust in a habitual drug user. Nancy had been a heroin addict from the age of 14.
I think she just had one thing on her mind all the time. It was like where her next fix was coming from, more than anything else.
Sid had been injecting speed with his mum for years. Within days of meeting Nancy, he took heroin for the first time.
Nancy's influence was twofold. One was that she told him he was great, and second, she told him that he's even better when you take smack.
The heroin took a hold, yes, that sort of changed his personality, as obviously it would, and he took to it, unfortunately, like a duck to water.
One might imagine that in that relationship, he was able to find acceptance of himself as a man, perhaps. And this would, of course, increase his level of attachment and devotion to her.
Nancy would sort of say to Sid, well, you know, I'll have this, but, you know, you can't handle that much, you know, that kind of thing. So he'd be like, yes, I can.
Sid, damn you!
Within a month, Sid was hooked and using heroin every day.
It wasn't anything I could do, but to see it happening, it was like seeing somebody come down with a fatal disease in front of your eyes.
Sid had finally broken his dependency on his mother and replaced her with Nancy. But with Nancy came heroin, the drug that would eventually kill him.
What was the next question? What was that question again?
It's early evening. Sid Vicious has 9 hours left to live. Sid and his mum Anne take a cab across New York to a small apartment in Greenwich Village, where she's arranged a party to celebrate his first day of freedom.
So what was it like in there, man? Rikers, how was it?
The apartment is owned by Michelle Robinson, a 22-year-old actress. Sid started sleeping with Michelle shortly after Nancy's death. She was one of the last people to spend time with Sid before he was detained at Rikers Island.
I'll tell you what, you'd be popular in
Also at the party is Eileen Polk, a New York punk who's a friend of Sid's mum.
What are you gonna do next, then? We were all in the bedroom when the party started out. He was hopeful in the early part of the day that he'd be acquitted and he'd be able to be playing music again, put a band together. With Sid and Ann, it wasn't like mother and son. It was like they were partners in whatever crime, the hell they were creating, whatever it was. She was his friend more than his mother. She cared about him a lot and took care of him when she could, like a mother. But she was considered one of the gang.
At 8 p.m., while Peter Kodik searches the streets for heroin, Anne cooks her son's favourite meal, spaghetti bolognese. Sid had been in good form all afternoon.
He had been so positive. While we were cooking dinner, he was trying on clothes, playing air guitar, jumping around. It was like the Sid that I knew was always there deep inside, but circumstances made it hard for that good-humored person to come out, especially in the recent past.
One of the things in treating depressed people that you always watch for, because if you see that their mood suddenly starts to get better, one of the things you have to be very suspicious of is that they haven't decided that they're really going to kill themselves, because their mood usually picks up when they do. They're no longer in confusion and in conflict.
But around midnight, Peter Kodik and a friend arrive at the party.
The atmosphere changed. The atmosphere of the party changed.
Peter, you naughty little girl.
Kodik has kept his promise and scored. Sid can finally take the high-quality heroin he's been craving all day. Just a year earlier, and Sid's escalating drug use was taking its toll. Sex Pistols were beginning to fall apart, and everyone blamed Nancy.
I'd have everyone coming up to me and going, that bitch, that slag, why the hell didn't she fuck off? She was a hooker, she was a drug addict, she was the worst possible influence for Sid. And then Sid would come and say, she's great, she's really beautiful.
In a botched attempt to get Sid off drugs, Malcolm McLaren sent the band on tour.
This is how unscheming Malcolm was. Malcolm felt that Sid was taking smack because the band weren't gigging, and so he was just bored and he was frustrated. So Malcolm thought, we have to get some gigs for the band, so he sent them to Holland. To keep Sid off smack, you send him to Holland, which is the most dumb thing you can do.
Well, it's always difficult to cope with people who are heroin addicts, particularly if you're not and you don't have a lot of experience in that world.
He was good at sort of like promoting the controversy. I think that was it, but I don't think in any other area he knew what he was doing. He might have thought he wanted to be a rock and roll manager, but he certainly wasn't acting like one.
There was nothing fatherly about me. I was very much a Machiavellian, mischievous kid myself. I was not the obvious manager. I mean, the record industry was terrified of me as a manager because I actually adored mismanaging. We tried to cold turkey him in Holland.
Every night, people had to be with Sid all the time to stop people giving him smack. And it was something you really dreaded, because he'd be, you know, he'd like become petulant, he'd get stroppy like smack addicts do when they can't get that fixed.
We would not allow him to go to the toilet without a roadie present. Boogie, another roadie, had to smash the door in, only to see Sid sitting on the toilet saying, "You can't even have a shit in peace."
He went from having that very charming naivety to being a right pain in the arse.
More often than not, Sid got his way and took more heroin. So when the band returned to London, McLaren came up with another plan. He'd remove the supplier, Nancy.
We beat up his girlfriend, Nancy, I have to be honest with you. Wrapped her up, threw her in the back of this car, and the roadie, Roden, I think it was, his job was to drive her straight to Heathrow and put her on the first flight back to the US.
It was Boogie, Sophie and me trying to hustle Nancy into a cab.
Soon the kidnap attempt ran into trouble.
She kind of managed to break open the back door of the car and roll out into the curb as a policeman came strolling by, and she was just screaming, "I've been kidnapped by the Sex Pistols! Help!"
McLaren's efforts were in vain. In January 1978, in a haze of heroin and bitter disputes, the Sex Pistols split. Sid and Nancy were now free to follow their path to oblivion.
The effect on Sid of the band splitting up was probably felt more deeply than, and more suddenly, more deeply than anybody else. On the night that this happened, Sid went off and OD'd. Sid was turning blue on a mattress on the floor, I picked him up. I started walking him around the room, and he started to come back.
Sid Vicious has just 4 hours left to live. It's past midnight and Sid's been waiting to inject heroin all day. At last, Peter Kodik prepares his fix.
I knew the stuff was quite good because the person I got it from, I knew, and they said, you know, be a little bit careful because this is quite good stuff. So I knew it was quite strong, the heroin that had been picked up.
That's good, man. That'd be good.
I think I sort of opened the packet and show him what I got. I mean, you know, Sid's initial reaction would probably be, oh, well, I'll take the whole lot.
Beauty, you beauty. Go easy.
I said, no, this is, you know, this is good stuff I've been told is very strong. Be really careful. So, of course, you know, you tell anybody that, but they still do probably too much.
One can keep on taking drugs in order to get rid of the pain, to get rid of the memory. And this itself can lead to death, but that may not be the conscious intention of the individual.
a little bit of heaven for me. Yeah.
He was fine for, 10, 15 minutes. Then I think, he got up, he threw up.
There he is.
He went to the bathroom, threw up again. And sort of, I think, oblivious to it all. She got a little bit worried maybe when, Sid was throwing up, but she was used to that before. She'd probably seen Sid throw up a million times before.
Oh my God.
Make some tea.
Oh my God, no.
Jacques, make some tea, please.
My first thought was, oh, he's fallen asleep or something, but then I realized right away that he was overdosing. He started turning blue, and it was pretty scary.
If somebody takes an overdose of heroin, he can manifest the effects of sleeping, of having fluid get in his lungs, even have froth coming out of his mouth.
Come on.
The heroin acts to depress the brain function. They can't breathe right.
Sid, come on. Come on, buddy. Sid, what's my name? What's my name? Talk to me, come on.
It was like, oh my God, he's, taking too much.
Sid, come on. Come on, buddy. Oh, breathe. Oh.
The basic thing was to keep him up, moving around, and not let him lapse in or fall asleep, or to keep him going, pump some liquids into him.
Come on. Sit, pull his head up, pull his head up.
I had a conversation with Anne in the living room where I said, look, we're about 3 blocks from St. Vincent's Hospital. Do you think we should do anything, bring him to the hospital? And she said, no, absolutely not. The press will find out, they'll make another circus out of it, and he'll go back to Rikers Island.
Anne's insane gamble with her son's life pays off, and finally Kodik manages to bring Sid round.
He's fine, just stand up.
He came out of it. And the first thing he said when he came out of it was, I'm sorry I scared you all.
Sid recovers quickly, but the party is over.
The overdose made me very nervous, and it wasn't what we had planned. We did not want to have a heroin party. I talked to Howie and Jerry only, and we said, let's get out of here.
Sid has barely survived a heroin overdose, but already he's thinking about his next hit.
What do you need? You get me another hit.
After the Pistols split, Sid and Nancy became inseparable. She declared herself his manager. They moved to New York and set up home at the Chelsea Hotel. They filled their days taking heroin and hanging around at Manhattan's punk clubs.
When I first met Sid with Nancy at Revenge, they seemed happy. And then over the course of the next 6 weeks or so, you could see that he was not doing well. I'd see him out at CBGB's and he'd just be sitting there with his head hanging, and Nancy would be handing him one drink after another.
Then, just 48 days after moving to New York, Sid's world fell apart.
Sid's like, out of it. And then the next thing he woke up, when Nancy's dead on the bed with the flick knife that Sid had bought that day sticking out of her stomach. And he knew nothing about it.
Nancy was lying dead. The murder weapon, Sid's 5-inch flick knife. But Sid couldn't remember a thing. They'd been on a drug binge with random hangers-on, taking 2-in-all, a barbiturate, methadone, quaaludes, and heroin.
He may very well have been completely obliterated. He may even been unconscious at different points based on the amount of drugs he ingested. Not just heroin, there was 2-in-all and other things that had been used and abused.
Sid claimed to have no idea whether he killed Nancy or not. From that moment, Sid spiraled into depression. Not knowing whether he murdered his girlfriend would haunt him for the rest of his short life. Sid Vicious has just 3 hours left to live. He's been charged with the murder of his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but claims he was so out of it, he doesn't know whether he killed her or not. It's the early hours of the morning in Michelle Robinson's apartment.
What do you need?
Sid has just survived an accidental heroin overdose, but now he wants to take more.
You get me another hit?
No. You've had enough for now, buddy.
I told him that was it. There wasn't any more left, you know, because he kept, oh, where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of it? I want to do more. Sid, you've had too much, blah, blah, blah. You know, be careful. So he obviously knew I had some more, so I had to give him a little bit more. The second amount that I gave him wasn't that much.
Within 2 hours of his near-fatal overdose, Sid injects more heroin.
There was no frame. There were no goalposts. He never saw a red light. He only saw green. Danger wasn't something that he'd ever consider. And he never ever thought that his life was important.
This time, Sid takes a small amount. As the drug takes hold, he begins to talk. It's the last conversation Kodik will have with Sid.
You know, we spent like the last 2 hours, you know, talking about, you know, what he's going to do. You know, he was due to go up to record this album, which is going to finance all the lawyers' fees, etc. We talked a little bit about Nancy and stuff like that. Yeah, he was fine.
After checking on Sid, Kodik makes plans to leave the apartment.
What heroin there was left, I gave to his mother, and I said, look, as far as Sid knows, there's no heroin left, okay? It's all gone. Give him this in the morning. She's like, fine, fine, yes. You promised, Beverly, you promised you won't do this. Yes, yes, I promise.
Kodik gives the leftover heroin to Sid's mum and leaves.
All I know is when I left the house at about 2 o'clock, he was fine.
Kodik is one of the last people to see Sid alive. His heroin intake is now being rationed, and he's making plans for the future. There's nothing to suggest that in less than 2 hours, he'll be dead. 4 days after being arrested for Nancy's murder, Sid was released on bail for the first time. In the days after Nancy's death, Sid was racked with guilt over what he might have done and sliding into a deep depression. His mother, Anne, and the Sex Pistols manager, Malcolm McLaren, became so concerned they asked forensic psychiatrist Dr. Steve Teach to assess Sid's state of mind.
It seemed he had a much longer depression going on from his childhood about kind of being treated second class by a society. He seemed to have no sense of purpose. The Sex Pistols had broken up and Nancy's death was overwhelming him. I mean, his coping strategy had been heroin.
The Sid Vicious tough guy persona was being tested to the limit. Facing a murder charge, the facade was falling apart, and more than ever, it seemed that Sid was capable of anything. Psychiatrist Steve Teach suggested that McLaren or his mother keep Sid under constant surveillance.
I recommended that they watch him, that one of the two people with him watch him all the time.
But they didn't.
The mother had gone off and scored dope for Sid around Union Square that night, 14th Street. It was easy to score dope in those days around that vicinity. And Sid had taken a light bulb from the toilet and had gashed his hands, you know? And his hands were sort of reaching out like this as we came through the door, and they were dripping. Both hands were just dripping with blood.
I got another call that he had cut himself when I come back over to the hotel. So I went back over there, and indeed, he had slashed his arm lengthwise from his wrist all the way down to his elbow area. And they had it compressed so the bleeding was contained. That wasn't in danger, but it was quite clear that he was now at a different level.
It was clear that Sid was not stable. Also, his mother seemed to be having problems. She was bruised. They'd obviously been in a fight together. She just couldn't look after him. But maybe nobody could at that point. I'm not sure.
And so we talked and decided that had to put him in the hospital and called emergency medical services to come over.
In New York, if you call an ambulance immediately, along come the police. And in this instance, Sid being such a high-profile character, it was going to be a rough ride.
When he saw the police, he ran for the open window and grabbed him, just held him, and then the police came in. I think the cut wasn't a suicide attempt. I've seen people, particularly in prison when I was working there, that cut themselves, and the usual report is that they're in such pain they cut themselves essentially to let the pain out. And I think that was much more of what was going on there, but nonetheless it was dangerous.
Sid was taken immediately to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital. Steve Teach was deeply concerned about Sid's state of mind and recommended he received long-term psychiatric care. But that didn't happen. Sid refused to stay and was released from Bellevue. In the weeks that followed, Sid repeatedly gave interviews to the press where he spoke of his desire to kill himself. In one interview, he claimed he wanted to be 6 feet underground and be at peace with Nancy. Unsurprisingly, this led the world to think that Sid ultimately took his own life. It now appears that this was not the case. Sid Vicious now has just minutes left to live. The party at Michelle Robinson's apartment is over. Sid is in bed with Michelle while his mother, Anne, sleeps in the next room. Sid has somehow managed to get his hands on the heroin. What happens next has been a closely guarded secret for 27 years. Some have speculated that Sid committed suicide, but for the first time, Sergeant Richard Houseman of the New York Police Department reveals what he was told when he investigated Sid's death.
Michelle said she was in bed with him. They were engaged in lovemaking, and that he decided to get high. She didn't want to let him get high. So in the meantime, he started to cook the drug up and wanted her to inject it into him. And she said no, she wouldn't do that.
Let's help me out a bit, will you? Come on.
I can't do it.
Why not? You can do it.
No, I won't.
It just takes a second.
I just won't do it. Okay, fine.
Yeah?
Yep.
Unable to cope with Sid's demands, Michelle leaves the room.
She came back out here into the front room, and then the mother, she told the mother what had happened, and the mother then said, well, I'll go in and see him. So the mother went in.
Sid's mother died of an overdose in 1996, but before she died, she made a remarkable confession to journalist Alan Parker. Faced with Sergeant Houseman's testimony, Parker has agreed to reveal her secret.
Anne told Michelle to wait in the living room while she went to speak to her son. Because he'd OD'd, he was in a very sweaty, shaky, horrible state, and he couldn't reapply the tourniquet, fill a syringe, or inject himself again. So she did. She reapplied the tourniquet, and she filled the syringe, and she re-injected him. And being a heroin addict herself, she knew exactly what to put inside that syringe that basically would have been enough drugs to kill 2 people, never mind 1.
With Sid's mother dead, we'll never know the precise motive for her actions on that day. But Parker believes she deliberately killed her own son as an act of mercy. In spite of the confidence of his lawyers, she knew Sid was terrified he might be sent back to Rikers, and so she took matters into her own hands.
And I only believe she did what she did because there was still that tingling thing at the back of her mind and at the back of his mind that he might not get off and he might end up being in prison for 20-odd years.
Michelle Robinson was outside the room, so there were no witnesses to Anne's actions, and the authorities were unable to prosecute. With Sid dead, the case of Nancy's murder was closed. For the New York police, Sid was the only suspect.
It's a difficult thing to have to come to terms with because, you know, I was part and parcel of supplying him with something which probably was responsible for killing him off.
If I regret anything, I regret not having been there.
Sid was a child, you know, he never grew up and never really had the chance to.
March the 4th, 1982. John Belushi is one of the most famous faces in America. Hollywood royalty.
John was and is an American hero, and his life was an American tragedy.
We all thought we were invincible back then. I mean, who doesn't when they're 23, 24 years old?
He was a good man, but a bad boy, but extremely funny.
He's a comic genius with a fatal flaw.
John did everything in his life to excess.
He was on a binge.
I was going to go out there that night. It was just that close.
Tragically, in 24 hours, Belushi will be dead, poisoned by a toxic overload of drugs. Los Angeles, March the 4th, 1982. It's midday, and John Belushi glides down Sunset Boulevard on his way to a power meeting. It will be his last. This is the beginning of his final 24 hours alive. Belushi has been using cocaine since he arrived in LA 4 days ago. His meeting is with the two men who, more than anyone, have been responsible for making him a star. Michael Eisner, the president of Paramount Pictures, and Belushi's manager, Bernie Brillstein.
The purpose of the meeting was to decide what movie John was going to do for his commitment to Paramount. It was like George Clooney. They were coming to talk George or John into this movie.
At the meeting, there's just one item on the agenda, Belushi's next movie. Eisner wants him to star in The Joy of Sex, a farcical takeoff on a popular sex manual. He's convinced it'll be a surefire moneymaker.
They saw him as a star that could put people in the seats, and there was a project that was hanging around the studio that wanted to get made. They had an option on it. They'd paid money to get it written, and they saw John as the express way to get it done.
Belushi resists. His instincts tell him that The Joy of Sex will be a career-damaging disaster and a personal embarrassment.
I don't need nothing, baby.
He was saying, you have to read it, you're not going to believe it. And, you know, and he said they want me to wear a diaper in this movie. That's how it's going to open, like I'm a baby in a diaper.
I promise you it's going to be great.
During the meeting, Belushi receives a call from his friend and fellow actor, Dan Aykroyd. Aykroyd gives him some advice.
Hey, Dan. Oh, don't do that piece of shit. Are you kidding me? Come on. Get away, get away. Get out, get away. Come home. It's the spring. Things will happen over the summer or the fall. We'll figure something out. I was writing Ghostbusters right then, which he would have been in. And I said, don't worry, John. We're going to cover it. We're going to do great stuff, you know. Don't be pressured to do this. Come home.
Sounds good. Yeah, bye. Bye.
Belushi flatly refuses to do the movie.
It was very nice. No one yelling, it was no crazy thing. And it was finally decided that it was a stalemate. You know, no one was going to do anything.
But Belushi has a hidden agenda. He's battling an addiction that's getting the better of him.
All right, I'll get it for you. How much is it going to cost me? $1,800.
John Belushi, God bless him, is an addict A to Z. And just like every other addict, it's a deadly disease. And there's always reasons that people use, but fundamentally it's the addiction that kills them.
Just 3 years earlier, Belushi had the #1 movie, the top-rated TV show, and the #1 album, all at the same time. No other entertainer had ever done that.
Well, that's one of those career highlights that one gets once in a career. John had Soul Man at the top of the record charts. He had Saturday Night Live at the top of late-night television. And he had the #1 comedy in the nation. And we all shared the abundance. And it was a time of celebration and, you know, massive adrenaline rushes and just really good times.
It was a heck of a ride. It was a good ride, most of the time. For a couple times, just hanging on. But it was scary sometimes. It was exciting. It was fun. It was innovative. It was different. Life with John was very fast. It always was fast. He always was on a fast track. He had a lot to do. He was very busy. John was a person who seemed on a mission in general in life. Like a little tornado. He just went through life and brought people along, and I think that most people enjoyed their time, but he did have more energy than most people.
Belushi was a comic genius. He was unpredictable, outrageous, a master of slapstick.
Like Keaton or Chaplin, any of those people, and I would definitely compare him to those people as a comedian. He had a great ability to physicalize. So he could make you laugh by raising his eyebrow.
He wanted to do more, to branch out into more serious roles. But the studios only wanted the Belushi they knew from his earlier movies.
They'd love to have me do Animal House goes to camp, Animal House joins the Army, Animal House rides a space shuttle, you know, but it's not the way I work. You know?
The trouble is, Belushi hasn't had a hit movie in 3 years, and the pressure is beginning to take its toll. John Belushi has turned down the sex comedy the studio have lined up for him. Next, he changes the agenda. He's borrowed money from his manager before and now tells him he wants cash to buy a guitar.
Come on, Bernie.
And we had cash in the office, and I gave him $1,800 cash. It was me. God knows I didn't know what was going to happen.
But the money is not for a guitar.
To be at the meeting that he allegedly came here for and to ask for money for drugs in the middle of the meeting, that's good drug addict behavior. That's how they behave. What's going through his head is, where am I going to get my next hit? Where can I get drugs?
With $1,800 in his pocket, Belushi's drug binge is about to hit a new and dangerous level. Belushi's cocaine addiction began 7 years earlier on the set of Saturday Night Live.
America was ripe for a new generation of humor, and we just hit it at the right time. Of course, we were absolute rebels, and really ill-behaved and really bratty and ratty.
Why me, man? I mean, why me?
I think there was just an attitude of rebellion and irreverence, and don't trust the old order, which was part of why the show could succeed.
In the late 70s, there was also a new attitude to drugs. Cocaine was easy to source, and the television industry was fueled by it.
Monday, we come up with an idea. Tuesday, we wrote it. Wednesday, we read it. Thursday, we blocked it. And Saturday, it was on the air. It was, for a writer, it was great. We got to produce our own pieces. We were given a lot of autonomy. So from that point of view, it was wonderful. But it was video commando time. We were live. There was a lot of pressure and stress. I relieved it by punching out the ceiling in my dressing room so I had a little more air. People thought that was a temper tantrum. That wasn't. That was merely me physically trying to get a little more space in there because I was feeling claustrophobic. We let off steam on the weekends after the show.
To be there and work there was to be like in a subway station for the rich and famous. To be at a party where, there'd be Keith Richards and William Burroughs and Baryshnikov and Andy Warhol, plus the cast, plus people from Hollywood, all in the same place. And so that's sort of unduplicatable. But it's also a great lesson because after that, there's hardly a party that is going to really impress me now.
The cast once had to do 4 shows in a row without a break. By the last week, almost everyone was using cocaine to keep going.
It's 3 in the morning and you have to think of 3 more jokes before 5 a.m. and you're falling asleep and someone puts out a line of cocaine. You have to be extremely strong-willed not to do it, simply because you need to stay awake. Not because you're going to be funnier.
For Belushi and many on the show, coke was seen as just a harmless stimulant, virtually risk-free.
Business.
Thank you very much. You can go.
The entire culture had found this new thing, cocaine. And it's easy. If I take a sniff, you'll get fun. You're not putting a needle in your arm. It's very clean.
It was perceived as a drug that would help creativity, it would assist in loquaciousness and solving the world's problems and exchanges. So it was just prevalent and ubiquitous. And I think to John, it was something that kept him up at night. It stimulated his thinking.
But Belushi seemed to be using more than anyone else. He started going on binges.
I think with John in particular, his appetites were always big, and that's where, part of his problem was. He always did a little more than anyone else. He always went a little longer than anyone else.
John was a man of the night. He loved being John Belushi. He loved to sing in clubs. And at the time, I believe people were doing a lot of drugs, and I don't think he separated himself from the drugs. But it wasn't big-time drugs. It was just really, you can't go back and understand that time. It was the time of Studio 54. It was a time of great separation of young people and old people. And a lot of people were doing drugs who couldn't handle them, including adults, people, lawyers, everyone. So if you kept John out of trouble and kept him focusing on what he was doing and his career, which he really didn't care about then. Well, when you get hot so fast, you don't have time to care. You think, more, they'll keep giving me more.
John had an insatiable appetite for everything, for life, for all of the tastes and pleasures and sensations, from, motorcycle speed to, a good, to 3 pieces of cherry pie.
And he seemed like a bull. People thought he could do anything.
And at that period of history, people didn't acknowledge the potential risk. There was a lot of sort of whatever sort of feeling about drugs and alcohol. They had no distinction between abuse and addiction. Addiction, you can't stop, even when you want desperately to stop. It's a biological process. It's different for different people, and once you cross that line or throw that switch, you're there. It's really a question of pharmacology and biology than any real psychological issue. The speed with which you get there sometimes has to do with what's going on emotionally with you, because you're looking for solutions, trying to feel better, can't regulate, can't trust. But once you're there, you're there.
Everyone thought it was the hippest thing in the world. And no one thought they'd die from it. No one.
Without realizing it, over the 3 years he worked on the show, Belushi developed the addiction to cocaine that he would struggle with for the rest of his life. John Belushi has 22 hours left to live. Using the cash he borrowed from his manager, he's on a mission to score some drugs. He's barely slept in the past 4 days. He arrives at a friend's apartment. She has a valuable contact who's also there, Kathy Evelyn Smith, a dealer and junkie.
How you doing? Welcome to LA. How are you?
Smith has spent years traveling with rock bands, supplying them with drugs. The three of them do coke. Belushi's wife Judy is at their home in New York. She knows he left for LA on a mission to get high and tried to stop him.
He was on a binge, and I wanted to, knew if he went back, it wasn't going to end. He had a mindset and just plowed right ahead. Made the choice.
Belushi's friend Dan Aykroyd is also in New York, at his office just a couple of blocks from Judy.
The thing is, with John, he didn't even have to buy it. People loved him so much, they wanted to hang out with him and socialize with him. So they would buy it for him and give it to him. Like, he would show up at a party and they'd automatically hear, have fun. And he would be collecting all this coke, and it was, Judy's job and my job sometimes to confiscate without his knowledge and to get rid of it.
With his wife and best friend on the other side of the country, Belushi is far away from those who care about him. He now takes some of the cash he got from Brillstein and gives it to Smith, sending her off to get more drugs. This time, it's not for cocaine. Belushi wants heroin. He's losing control, sliding deeper into his drug-fueled binge, and there's no one around to tell him to stop. Just 2 years earlier, Belushi and Aykroyd were about to take the Blues Brothers on tour. They'd created the characters on Saturday Night Live, and the movie had been a smash hit. But Belushi knew he had a problem, and he wanted to deal with it for the tour. He hired a bodyguard, Smokey Wendell, to keep him away from cocaine.
He said, I have all this going on, the Animal House, the Saturday Night, and I'm working on these other projects, and all of a sudden, it's just going too fast for me. And if I don't somehow get a hold of myself and get control of myself, I won't be around in the next 2 or 3 years.
Smokey was great. He was ex-New York State Police, ex-Louisiana State Police, and ex-Secret Service. He had gone with Nixon to China. He was a very colorful and wonderful character who had John's best interests at heart. I
was asking him why he was so dependent on it. Why did you always have to feel the need to go? Because most of the time, it's usually basically loneliness, pressure, more insecurities in yourself that you can't live up to that. And I believe when we talked about it, it was that. People always wanting him to be funny, people always wanting him to be on. There was no space. So that's why he would have to go to Candyland.
On Belushi's last day, the drug that had once offered an escape was now controlling his every move. It's late afternoon and John Belushi has less than 19 hours left to live. After doing cocaine with Kathy Smith, he asks her to score heroin. Belushi then returns to his apartment at the Chateau Marmont in Hollywood. He makes a number of phone calls, first to Brillstein saying he's changed his mind. He will do the joy of sex after all. Next, a call to Michael Eisner, head of Paramount, telling him the same thing. Belushi now phones Eisner's senior vice president, Jeff Katzenberg, and arranges to meet on Friday.
Tomorrow afternoon. Sure.
In a typically outrageous Belushi move, he tells the Paramount executive to give him a wake-up call.
Okay.
Katzenberg writes it in his calendar.
Thanks.
The executives believe Belushi is now on board.
I have medical students every day in my unit, and I always train them to put their fingers in their ears when an addict is talking to them, because what they say is all bullshit, it's all obfuscation, it's all distortion, it's all their brain trying to find a way to get them out of there so they can continue using. So what you got to respond with an addict is how they make you feel, and learn to sort of intuitively read all that. And so this issue of John weighing out scripts and being so disturbed by that, there's no addict I know gets into that kind of nuance. It's more that he wanted to go use, he didn't want to do anything.
True to form, the next call Belushi makes is to Kathy Smith to find out if she's scored the heroin. He wants to hook up immediately.
Kathy, it's John. Yeah. How fast can you get here?
His brain at that point will be going, use or die, use or die. The brain believes if it doesn't continue using, and believe is not really an accurate word, it manifests through neurobiological mechanisms that if the individual doesn't continue using, they will die. So use or die.
Belushi shows no signs of slowing down. He and Kathy Smith spend the next 4 hours constantly on the move. Buying and consuming drugs, the pace frenetic and surreal. At one point, Belushi calls Dan Aykroyd in New York.
He left me a message, a slurred, drunken, kind of message that was just indecipherable. And I heard that on the answering machine, and then I just continued working.
But Belushi's message worries Aykroyd. He'd been on the receiving end of these calls before. He walks from his office to Judy Belushi's Greenwich Village apartment. He and Judy have to take action.
It was clear we, had to help stop him, try to get him some other kind of help. I think Danny felt very immediately worried. He may have been more in touch with the reality of it from having heard that tape.
They decide they have to rescue John and get him out of Los Angeles. Judy calls Smokey at his home in Virginia.
She said, do you think you can find some time for John? And I had always told her, never thinking it would happen. I always said, hey, if you ever need time, I will make time. Whatever I'm doing, I would do. And I said, okay, fine, I'll be out there tomorrow.
Smokey tells Judy he'll fly to LA and bring Belushi home. But tragically, he didn't get to make that journey for her. Judy and John were childhood sweethearts. They met at high school. She was 15, he was 17.
The first time I saw John, he was on stage. He was doing the varsity show, the big event in town. I'd seen a lot of these shows, and he was one of the best, and I knew it immediately. This guy has talent.
They grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. John came from a family of hard-working Albanian immigrants.
His parents weren't really happy together, and I feel that he knew that, sensed it, and I think that, kids are unhappy if their parents are unhappy. And I think a little bit of his humor around the house when he was young had to do with learning early that he could make his mother laugh, that she was a good audience, and maybe a little bit feeling like by making her laugh, he was making her happier. But I think also as he grew up, he realized, well, I know, he said to me he could never make his mother happy. And I think, that's one of those things that kids really suffer from.
Dan Payne was Belushi's high school drama teacher. He remembers the first time he saw Belushi. It was at an audition.
The music director said, well, John, what are you going to do? He said, and he just started, he said, well, I was going to tell some stories, and he started telling things. You know, he was like a stand-up, and they were really funny. And all you could hear, the other students waiting to audition, standing backstage, they were all laughing. So this guy said to me, this guy's hilarious. The kids just love him. We're going to put him in the show. He fit in everywhere, and I don't quite know why. He was short. He was stubby. I never, you know, you've seen the pictures of him. I don't think you'd say he was a nice-looking kid, good-looking guy, but he was not, quote, handsome. He wasn't the big blonde idol kind of guy. He was just sort of there, you know. But people, he would just, there was something about, it was a very magnetic personality.
By the time John finished high school, he was the football captain, the homecoming king, and voted most popular student. He liked to surround himself with people and always stood out in the crowd.
I would say that John needed the group. He was a tough guy. I mean, alpha male, Illinois, heterosexual, toughie, but with, you know, an open heart. I mean, he was very sensitive and vulnerable, and this is partly the reason that he came to the demise that he did, that he trusted people.
Tragically, on his last day, Belushi now put his life in the hands of a known junkie. It was to be a fatal error. It's now early evening, and Belushi has less than 14 hours left to live. He and Kathy Smith arrive at the Roxy nightclub, a Hollywood landmark that leads to an exclusive upstairs bar on the rocks. Celebrities can do what they want here without being bothered. Slipping through a side door into the bar, Belushi is agitated, his mind racing. He's complaining to anyone who'll listen about the pressure he's under to do the joy of sex and the pressure of being John Belushi. Belushi and Smith go to the bathroom. A potent cocktail is being prepared, a mixture of cocaine and heroin that produces an immediate euphoric rush. It's called a speedball. Belushi has just upped the ante. He's about to inject cocaine, and he's added a powerful opiate to the mix. Heroin.
It's an extremely powerful delivery of large doses of the drug right to the brain. And what you see in humans when they're delivering the cocaine by this mechanism, they begin behaving like laboratory animals. Laboratory animals, when you give them free access to cocaine, will use straight for a couple weeks and die. That's just about what humans do. They will either run out of money or they will die. And a binge on cocaine, as I've said, is where the first hit feels great, the next however many, each one feels subsequently worse until you develop a psychosis. It always develops. You know you're going there, and yet you can't stop from starting it. And once you start, you can't stop till you're done, till you run out of money or something horrible happens to you.
Belushi and Smith spend 5 hours at On the Rocks, making more than one trip to the bathroom. Belushi seems unable to stop.
By the way, if John Belushi stayed in Wheaton, Illinois, where he was born, he would have been the same guy. Same way. You can't blame someone for someone's drug problem. It's the person who thinks he can handle it, then all of a sudden he can't. And when you're doing drugs, what do you want of drugs? You don't want a career.
John was really good at creating characters, but he hadn't gone through the maturity, which there's no age for it. But I think maybe it was a little, it was late. He was 33 when he died. He hadn't gotten to the point where he let go of the child, didn't let other people define him, and decided for himself that he was who he was, a good person, worthy of everything good that came to him, and those kind of ideas that I think give you your strength. And he didn't have that.
On his last day, Belushi is a shadow of his former self. His body is slowly being destroyed by the drugs he's consuming. It was all very different when Belushi was in his 20s. After college, he moved to Chicago with Judy. It was here he got his start at the training ground for America's top comedians, the famous Second City Theater.
He knew that night. He said that night, "This is what I want to do. I'm gonna get up here one day."
In 1971, he did. He went straight to the main stage without having to train with one of the touring companies. That had never happened before, nor has it been repeated since.
Oh, it was incredible. He walked on stage, he didn't have to open his mouth. One knew that he had enormous presence, and then he turned out to be a good actor.
Belushi was a high-octane performer. He pushed at the boundaries for the rest of the cast.
Of course, it was the perfect scene for John because he was given permission to be insane, you know. And John was one of, like, our bellwether. He sort of rode point for us as our little comedy wagon train went out into the wilderness. If John went, wherever John went, you know, anything south of John was sane.
An actor has a very ambiguous position vis-a-vis an audience. He has to expose himself to them, so to speak, and he has to ask them for his confirmation. And there's something in him that needs to ask, and something in him which hates that need to ask.
There was no sign of the addiction problems to come that were to destroy Belushi.
When he was at Second City, I think he was still young enough and buoyant enough that he didn't need a lot of pharmaceuticals to amuse him. He was so just thrilled to be on stage. I don't think he was more pharmaceutically inclined than the culture around him.
He had an enormous amount of self-assurance and confidence, way beyond either his age or his level of achievement. He just knew he would make it, and you knew he would make it.
Chicago was, I think, a big formative time for John. He was on top of the world there. It was the safest place to be. He was successful. He was supported by his teammates. People would come in from out of town to look at him and say, "You're doing a great job. Come out and screen test for us." But he could always return home to Chicago. He could count on the audience to embrace him. He knew what restaurants to go to. He knew where to get coffee at 2 in the morning if he wanted to take a walk. He had nice roommates. He had Judy, who was fabulous and supportive in Iraq. It was he still had a dream. And so I think nothing could compare to those days.
After Second City, Belushi got his break on Saturday Night Live. But everything changed when he won a part in the low-budget movie Animal House. He became an international superstar overnight.
Opening night, I had never seen anything like it in New York. It was just crazy. The theater was crazy.
So it was a big night. It was a premiere, and it was in New York City, and he was like, one of the stars of the movie. And it was a moment of innocence, because we went forward from that room, and I don't think it was ever the same. It just took a turn. It wasn't all bad by any means. There was a lot of good that happened after that, but it was just sort of a real moment that changed after that.
Well, you get to those heady atmospheres, it's sometimes tough to stay anchored, and I think that was certainly a factor in the usage of the cocaine and the vulnerability of John, the people who were preying upon him and kind of sucking his energy in that psychic vampire sense,
It had taken Belushi just 7 years to make it. On his 30th birthday, he'd reached superstar status. He was #1 in every medium, film, TV, and rock and roll. But in 3 short years, he would lose it all. It's close to midnight, and Belushi is still reeling from the combination of cocaine and heroin he's been injecting into his bloodstream. After 5 hours at the bar, Belushi and Smith leave. Belushi tells Smith to stop the car. He opens the door and throws up. Now they're heading back to the Chateau Marmont, Belushi's final destination. At bungalow number 3, Belushi rushes to the bathroom and is sick again. Belushi and Smith smoke a joint. He picks up his guitar, strums a few chords, and passes out. A few seconds later, he abruptly comes to. 3:15 a.m. Kathy Smith injects Belushi with one more Speedball. It will be his last. Earlier, at the height of his fame, Belushi came close to beating his addiction. Before taking the Blues Brothers on tour, he hired bodyguard Smokey Wendell. Smokey's brief was to keep Belushi away from drugs. He was put to the test on his first day. Belushi was in a recording studio learning a song for the tour. Wendell spotted an outsider talking to Belushi.
These were people that would be commonly known as suppliers. They would be able to produce party favors.
Smokey watched the dealer go into the bathroom after talking to Belushi. Smokey then went into the bathroom himself and found the drugs.
John went into the bathroom, came back, said a few words to the guy, of which I knew it was basically whatever was there was no longer there. John went back in the booth, the guy went back in. So we did this 3 times. We played this game. 3rd time, John was getting really annoyed with the gentleman.
Smokey then approached the dealer standing by the coffee table.
And I said, you know, there are many ways to sweeten coffee. I happen to like sweet and low. Sweet and low looks very much like this. And I had poured it into the coffee. At that point, I said to the gentleman, I said, you know, we could do this all day. I just don't know how much money you can afford to lose. And the guy, got totally very uncomfortable.
The dealer tried another tactic, slipping some cocaine into a cigarette pack. Belushi announced that he wanted a smoke and picked up the cigarettes.
And he was going to put it in his pocket. Well, then I knew that there was a favor in there. That turned into a physical altercation with John and I. It was a tug of war, and we were wrestling on the floor in the studio. And the 2 guys that ran the studio, they were, I don't believe this. I can't believe this. And we got up, and I said, John, look, if you want to do this, then you don't really need me here. If you don't, I mean, this is going to happen every day.
It worked. We did a tour with the Blues Brothers, and that was grueling because we had, 20 shows in 16 cities. And, we were able to meter the dosages, and John performed beautifully and effectively, and we had a great, lucid, clear, creative time. And so Smokey worked.
Belushi kept clean for the entire tour. He desperately wanted to win his battle against addiction. And by the end of the tour, he was in such good shape, Smokey felt it was time to move on.
And we had him working out and losing weight, and he would he said, oh yeah, the highlight of my high tonight was I got 2 more push-ups in. But he would laugh, and that would be his way of saying, hey, I can do this. He would find time to come and talk to me. I would be asleep downstairs, and he would knock on the door. And it was basically, I think he was at that point where he didn't want to sleep, he didn't want to go out, and he just wanted to talk. And it would be either about the work or the job, plans, ideas he has, his wife, how much he loved Judy, how much she meant to him. And I mean, on more than one occasion, he would say to me, you know, whatever she needs, whatever she wants, I don't ever question, you just do it. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I said, well, then you can't question why we're sitting here together, because this is what she wants. And he just smiled, and he said, boy, you got me again. And that's when I knew, as we kept bonding, that he wanted this, and then it was becoming easier and easier for him. And at that point, I was looking to move on to the next, and I just said, you know, I think you're okay to go on. And I remember him being so disappointed. And I remember him saying to me, what is it? Do you want a car? Do you want, I'll pay you more. I'll pay you. But I said, it's not that. You don't, John, you don't need me.
The following summer was one of Belushi's happiest, spent at his favorite place, Martha's Vineyard. It would be his last.
You know, it was beers and wines and occasionally a little of the green stuff, but no powders or pills that summer, and it's certainly reflected in the picture where he's standing with Judy belly to belly. He's got a blue shirt on and a hat, and you can see how good his color is. He's got the full weight on. There's no gauntness there. And it was a summer of body surfing, Jeep rides, running on the beach, dodging sharks. He was truly off and relaxed then. Those were wonderful moments.
He did have more energy than most people, and that was his, you know, need to slow down sometimes was something he had trouble doing. But once he got slow, he was real slow. Put him on a beach and he could stay there all day. Just keep bringing some food, water. He'd be fine.
At the end of the summer, Hollywood came calling again. Belushi agreed to star in the comedy Neighbors with Dan Aykroyd.
Well, Neighbors we shot at night on Staten Island, and again at that time, Coke was ubiquitous, and everybody was using it like coffee. It was to keep us up at night, you know.
But for Belushi, it meant temptation.
He tried what we call white knuckle it. He tried to just avoid all this. You can only do that so long. It's like trying not to eat. You can only go so long without eating. Eventually, you're going to eat.
He stopped lots of times. Yeah. He had a fairly long, seemingly successful time. But you know, in retrospect, clearly whatever that wasn't dealt with. He was just in abstinence. It's like the dry drunk, you know. If you stop drinking, but you haven't, it's the same thing. Whatever that is, whatever that's about.
Getting people off drugs is the easiest thing in the world. Anybody can get off drugs. The problem is staying off. And that's where the whole treatment process comes in. Now, many people believe, A, they can control it themselves, and you see this is not a volitional process, so they can't. Or that, B, they could substitute it with something else, like exercise and yoga and all these things. And that will work for a time. But inevitably, when there's a stress, when there's drugs available, they will relapse.
He could be triggered because he didn't feel, he had a scene on the show he really wanted to be on, and it wouldn't be on, and that could trigger it. He could have had some great success. It was so exciting that it triggered it. So I just think drug addiction, ultimately, there is some kind of chemical imbalance or dysfunction going on. And I think there seems to be new research all the time, and maybe one day someone can tell us all about this, but I really don't know. I just don't know.
Intervention back then was not a tool that was used. Today, if we had a problem like this, we'd get 6 to 10 people together. We'd get the guy or girl in the room and sit them down and say, it's going to stop, you're going into rehab, that's it, and the flex cuffs would come out. Now, I mean, now that's what we do. Back then, that was not, you know, not a technique that was widespread.
After filming Neighbors, Belushi's cocaine addiction took hold again. With each hit, he was slowly killing himself. And on his final day, he was far from those who could have saved him. It's just before dawn. John Belushi has 6 hours left to live. He's been injecting cocaine and heroin all day. He complains of feeling cold. Kathy Smith puts him to bed and turns up the heat. Belushi lapses into sleep or unconsciousness.
He's dying of his disease at this point. This is not an overdose. This is toxic, chronic toxic effects on the body, overwhelming him finally.
Smith writes a letter and orders toast and coffee from room service. At 10:15 a.m., she makes one last check on Belushi. He's snoring. She puts her drug paraphernalia, a syringe and spoon, into her purse and leaves. Belushi is now alone in the bungalow. His wife Judy and best friend Aykroyd are at home in New York.
Sure, I mean, I felt like I should have been with him that whole time out there. It would have been different if I was there. But you come back to a point where you realize, well, first of all, it might not have been different if I was there. And it's just a life, you know, life. You gotta let go of it. You gotta know that's what that's what happened. That's all that you can, there's no more. That's it. Can't redo, so.
Or I was going to go out there that night. You know, it was just that close. You know, it was really close, like a hair close. You know, yeah. To you know, of course, I will always feel for the rest of my life that maybe I didn't do enough, and but he was alienating us at the end as well. You know, and pushing us away, and he'd get real mad if you took the coke away, and you know, and. You know, it was, but I'll live with that for the rest of my life. That we didn't get there in time.
Belushi has been lying unconscious in his hotel bed for hours. Then at 12 p.m., Bill Wallace, Belushi's assistant, arrives at the bungalow with a typewriter Belushi wanted for script writing.
John.
Wallace immediately senses something is wrong. He can't hear John's usual snoring.
John, come on. We're gonna be late.
He walks into the bedroom telling Belushi it's time to get up. Belushi is curled up on his right side. Wallace shakes him. There's no response. He discovers Belushi is not breathing. His first instinct is to call Brillstein.
We're in trouble. First words, we're in trouble. What do you mean in trouble? He's sleeping, he won't get up? No, he's having a problem breathing. And I said, oh. And I went into action like I knew what I was doing. I had my assistant call 911.
John, come on, wake up, John. Come on, John, wake
Wallace pounds on Belushi's chest, tears in his eyes, crying, "You dumb son of a bitch."
Wake up! Come on, John.
I went to the Cedars-Sinai to wait at the emergency entrance so no one would know John was coming over.
At the Chateau Marmont, paramedics place Belushi on the floor. Not knowing he's already dead, they suspect a heart attack. They try to revive him, but soon give up.
Is that all you're gonna do?
Wallace protests, but they say it's too late. John Belushi died on the morning of the 5th of March, 1982. At the Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Brillstein waits and waits. The ambulance is not coming.
And finally, one of my assistants called and said, Bernie, you can come home, John is dead. And what do you do when you're alone in a phone booth? No one had a cell phone then. and one of your best friends died. You can't believe it. I, of course, felt responsible. You know? I know everyone says this wasn't your fault, he would have gotten the money someplace else, but I gave him the $1,800. You know? Do I wish I hadn't? Sure. It was his money. You know? He had made it for me, I gave it to him. And I guess the guitar is still there.
The police arrive at the Chateau Marmont, then the media. The word will soon be out.
The first thought I had was, Judy's gonna hear it on the radio. I called Danny in his 25th Street office, got him on the phone, said, Danny, don't ask me what to do. I'm telling you, John is dead. It's not a joke.
I was writing Ghostbusters at the time, and I was writing a line for him when the call came from Mr. Brillstein that he'd gone. And I immediately got up and went outside to get to Judy. I didn't want to take a cab. I didn't want to be carried. I had to move myself. Otherwise, I would have just buckled to my knees. And I ran down to Judy's from 5th and 23rd. I ran down to Morton Street.
I heard someone punching the lock and run up the stairs, and it was Danny.
And I told her before anyone else knew, you know, that he was gone. And but it was essential for me to get there before she heard it from someone else. So.
And, you know, that's a real good friend. Okay. So.
It was 2 weeks later that coroner Thomas Noguchi confirmed the cause of death.
The office issued the official death certificate described as acute cocaine and heroin intoxication.
An examination of Belushi's arms revealed that he'd been injecting for some time.
He had injection sites both sides. I mean, no, this is not an overdose. This is toxic effect of intravenous drugs. It's hard for me to believe that he was doing intravenous drugs for only 4 or 5 days. This does not look like that kind of situation at all. It's like somebody's been doing it for a while and finally dies of it.
Kathy Smith was arrested and eventually served 18 months in prison for her part in the tragedy. She was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Every year, thousands of fans still make the pilgrimage to Martha's Vineyard just to stand at Belushi's grave.
So somehow he's just touched people in that way, and I think when you actually have people feeling that you've made a difference in their life, then they don't forget you.
Four years of television and 7 movies, and we're still talking about him. Isn't that amazing?
You get a sense that we do meet those who've gone before, and we meet them in the form that we knew them. And they meet us in the form that they knew us. And just for a while, not forever, not for eternity, there is a reunion there. And it's going to be one rockin' night.
October the 30th, 1993. On this day, a Hollywood heartthrob will die from a massive overdose of cocaine and heroin.
The call came in sometime after midnight. It came in as a seizure up on Sunset Boulevard at the Viper Room.
I walked out and I literally cartwheeled over him. He was lying on the sidewalk getting resuscitated by paramedics.
I didn't understand what had happened. You know, half an hour ago, he was, you know, seemingly no problem. And then boom.
This is the story of the last 24 hours of River Phoenix. Los Angeles, Saturday, October the 30th, 1993. River Phoenix wakes early. To the world, he's Hollywood's golden boy. Vegan, ethically minded, squeaky clean. The truth is very different. For over 2 years, River has been struggling to overcome a drug problem. Today, that problem will overcome him. River is working on a film called Dark Blood. He's been on the film for 2 months and has stayed off drugs all that time. But when he arrives for the last day of filming, director George Slauser notices River is behaving strangely.
There was a difference in, I'd say, body language. He could not judge distances perfectly well, and his walk was a little different than normal. He was someone who would never sit longer than, I think, 20 minutes without standing up from a chair. And that day he sat maybe for an hour without moving from the chair. He had been taking drugs the night before. That was obvious.
River has an on-again, off-again drug habit, but recently he's been finding that habit harder to manage. Until today, he's been clean on set, but it's been a struggle.
I saw him during the shooting of Dark Blood. He was in bad shape during that. And I think that had more to do with the drug problem at that point. That it was a difficult film. He was having a difficult time on it, trying to stop, detoxing, the pressure of having to do the role when you're not physically ready. It was a difficult, really difficult time for him.
Now, for the first time on the shoot, it looks like River is losing the battle.
And I got a call on my machine, and he says, it's River. He said, maybe I can see you over the weekend. He says, you know, I'm having a real hard time keeping my head above water. He says, in this crazy business. It was the first time I ever heard any uncertainty in River's voice.
So far, River Phoenix has had a charmed passage through Hollywood. Now, on the set of his 14th film, he's coming apart. River was 9 years old when his family moved to Hollywood. By the time he was 15, he was already getting noticed. He just had something special.
The first time I laid eyes on River Phoenix was when I was casting my movie, Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. I'd come from lunch and somebody said, well, you're going to meet this kid named River. I said, River, is that his real name? And she said, yeah. I said, she said, River Phoenix. I said, whoa, what a name. I walked into the little reception area, and this kid stood up. And as he walked over towards me, I saw this light around him. And it was like a halo, and it was an aura. I mean, and all of this happened within seconds. I just said, this is a star.
It was River's performance in the hit movie Stand By Me that thrust him into the limelight. Overnight, he became a teen idol. His face was on the cover of magazine after magazine, and he was getting thousands of fan letters every week. But River was more than just a pretty face. He could act, too.
Every single take was excellent. You only did one take, or two maximum, and the enthusiasm and the intensity was there, so he was inspiring everybody else. People wanted to be around River.
I don't think I ever felt that something was false or fakey. I'm quite sensitive, I guess, to people who are either theatrical in the wrong way or are just saying lines which they don't understand or don't mean, they don't know. It has a lot to do with, the pauses you make when you talk and how your voice goes and so on. And how I would say the body and the voice and the arms and the feet and everything and the eyes are in sync, or one thing. When you think or feel one thing, you know, your feet should feel it too. You know, if you don't, then you're acting the wrong way. And River, in that sense, was absolutely an actor, because I felt that his whole body was participating.
Soon, River was on Hollywood's A-list. He was Oscar-nominated for his role in Running on Empty, and his part in My Own Private Idaho won him the Best Actor award at the Venice Film Festival. After just a few years in Hollywood, River was earning almost $1 million a movie, and he was a pin-up the world over. But for River, the money and the recognition was not enough in itself.
He wanted really to be good in what he did. So at that level, you might say that his fame and his success was an adversary to his peace, you know, and that he was being seen. And also knowing that his family came more and more to depend on him because he was the main breadwinner for a clan.
Aged 17, River found himself supporting his parents, 4 brothers and sisters, paid staff, and hangers-on.
He was the golden child who went to Hollywood, became a movie star, and so he had the pressure of having to support his family, to bring in income. I can only imagine that it presents a kind of pressure that, so when the work stops and you're like, ooh, what am I gonna do next? Where's the next job coming from? I know I'll get something, but what do I do in my downtime? How do I take the pressure off? I think that's another avenue where, partying and drinking and, having that kind of life can really, present itself and as a healthy alternative. This kind of like, oh, I need this because I'm gonna have to go back to work again soon, and I'm gonna have to stay clean for that, and I'm gonna have to, I just wanna be me for the small period of time, and I just wanna have the pressure off. He had a lot of pressure. It's a big family to have to support and to feed and to house and clothe.
The pressure on his young shoulders was enormous, and from time to time he needed to escape. Music was one release. He would jam for hours late into the night, often falling asleep over his guitar. The other way he relieved the pressure was to take drugs. River had the money and the freedom to do whatever he wanted, and his friends knew he had to be watched.
With River, you always had, someone had to be there. Someone had to chaperone his drug use, and if they didn't chaperone his drug use, it was dangerous. It was always dangerous.
River has been on the set of the movie Dark Blood for 8 hours. He's on edge, feeling terrible after a late night taking drugs, and so far today, all he's done is sit and wait.
It took us all day to set it up because we had just come back to LA and we had other sets, and so, the actors had to wait around most of the day for this one scene.
Director George Slouser is watchful of his star.
I felt that I had to be sure that everything was going to go okay. It's like you have it's a bit silly to say, but if you have someone who's sick, then you might take along, to sit down somewhere. You take care a little more because you don't know exactly how things will develop.
First position, please.
Finally, the cameras are ready to roll. It's time for River to perform. But of all the scenes he's ever done, the next is the one he's come to dread. He'd long idolized his co-star Judy Davis, but now he was getting the chance to work with her. She seemed to be doing everything she could to make his life a misery.
Good. She was very difficult to work with, and we had a bad relationship. I was very irritated by the way she treated River, by making it difficult for him to act, whispering instead of talking, or when you could help, not helping. The only time I suffered through an actress, I've never had any problems with actors ever before in my career, but she made up for 40 years or something, or 30 years, because she was in a kind of way impossible, and she made it tough for River also. He complained to me many times that she was making it tough for him.
River was so sensitive. And I don't think that he'd maybe experienced even until that particular movie, people that weren't kind to him at some level.
River felt the antagonism deeply. He phoned friends in tears. Yet for 7 long weeks he endured it, asking George Slouser to postpone the love scenes.
He asked me, can I play this scene the last day, because I don't feel like doing it halfway and touching her and whatever. I mean, he'd said, you know, I'm getting goosebumps if I, have to touch her arm.
Now the scene can be delayed no longer. It'll be the last of River's short life. And in just a few hours, he'll take the drugs that will leave him fighting for his life on an LA sidewalk. River Phoenix has 16 hours to live. He's on the set of his last film, Dark Blood, and he's in a bad way. He's edgy and nervous about the next scene. It's a love scene with Judy Davis, a woman he says makes his skin crawl. But so far 3 takes are in the can, and River has held it together. Now it's take 4.
Mark it. Mark. Frame. Action.
Somebody's gonna die. Believe me.
The scene is over and the shot should have ended when the director shouted cut. But when the crew gathered 2 days later, after River had died, they realized something very strange had happened.
At the end of the 4th take, it was cut, wrap, to print. The lights came down, and River became this perfect silhouette, lit by these candles, almost like you're in a church. River walked up to the camera and stood there for about 5 seconds. And then I realized, oh, the camera was still rolling, and I turned it off.
River died just hours after this shot was taken.
It was the eeriest thing I've ever experienced through my camera. It still gives me the chills.
Filming over, River leaves set for the night, but the day's events have left him shaken. River was emotionally fragile. The smallest thing could upset him. This vulnerability had its roots in River's childhood. River spent his early years on the road in Latin America. He wasn't River Phoenix then, he was River Bottom. His parents, John and Arlen Bottom, were missionaries for a Christian cult called the Children of God. River's dad, John, held the grand title Archbishop of Venezuela and the Caribbean. They went wherever God sent them. Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. It was an unsettled existence. They had no friends, no home. Often struggling to make ends meet, they trusted in God to provide. Actually, it was often River. At the age of 5, he and his younger sister Rain were busking on the streets to feed the family. After 3 years on the road, his parents had had enough. In Caracas, they threw themselves on the mercy of Father Stephen Wood.
I was at that time pastor of this church and had been a friend of the Children of God for many years. And this family showed up saying that they were leaving the Children of God and needed help. They had decided that they could no longer accept the directions they were receiving from headquarters. They found them increasingly at odds with what they read in the Bible.
The Children of God would later become notorious for their ideas about sex. Teaching that sex was just another way of showing God's love, couples often swapped partners. Children were encouraged to sleep in the same bed as their parents while they made love, and children were to be initiated into sexual practices at the age of 4. Whether River was involved in any sexual practices has never been ascertained. His close friends refused to talk about it. Soon after these practices were advocated, his parents wanted out. but their decision left them stranded.
They found themselves in a foreign country with absolutely no funds, no place to live, no money to buy food for their children, and no way to get back to the United States, which was their goal. They asked for hospitality and help. Meanwhile, they were going to try to earn enough to eat out of and then to see how they would somehow get back to the U.S.
Father Wood gave them room and board, and in exchange, River and Rain performed Christian songs during Sunday service.
The most well-known was that You've Got to Be a Baby, but River sang it not just in Spanish, but also in English, French. He sang it in Japanese and Swahili. I'm not sure that he was all that great of a singer, but he was a little kid. He was a great entertainer in his singing. And the fact that he could even play this huge guitar, this guitar that was so much bigger than him, was impressive. It was our most popular service, and it was literally standing room only. But he had the attention of absolutely everyone, while his little sister was out kind of working the crowd. I think on the streets where they had been trained, she would be going around asking for money. But here it was just kind of get the people to clap and to sing along.
After 4 months, Father Wood found the family a way back to Florida on a cargo ship. On arrival, they changed their name to Phoenix to symbolize a new beginning. But River's early years would leave their mark.
He told me he suffered from the upbringing. I guess part of his, vulnerability and fragility, which is also part of which why he's a good actor, is maybe due to that background. You can become strong because you have this kind of tough childhood, or you can get obviously traumatized. So I think it's a bit of both.
River was vulnerable. He took the knocks of everyday life hard, and drugs were an easy escape. River Phoenix has just 6 hours left to live. He's had a tough day on the set of his latest film, Dark Blood. But now he's back at his hotel where he can let go with his family and friends. Dickie Rude has been a close friend of River's for 2 years.
He was just in good spirits, His family was around, his brother and his sister and his girlfriend, and he was happy to be, off of the set. Things were jovial.
Dickie's wife, Abby, is River's personal assistant. Samantha Mathis has been dating River for the last 6 months. And some of River's family have flown in to see him. Joaquin, his only brother, is here. And so is Rain, River's sister, who shares his passion for music.
Yeah, Rainbow Leaf, Liberty Summer, they loved River dearly. He was the best older brother ideal you could imagine, nurturing, caring, protecting, and would go to him for advice, and he had, a great deal of experience with all of their emotions and differences.
There's no sign now of the stress he was under earlier on set.
It was a normal, welcome back to LA type of atmosphere. He was great. He seemed to be completely on his mark. There was no clue as to any kind of haywire going on or potential for that.
So far today, River has stayed clean, and that's the plan for the night ahead. He wants to keep a clear head because he's been asked to play at one of LA's coolest new clubs, the Viper Room. River is due to appear alongside one of his music heroes, but tragically, he'll never make it onto the stage. The movies dominated River's teenage life. They had to. They were his family's bread and butter. But River had grown up playing music. It was his all-consuming passion.
When he wasn't working as an actor on my movie, he was playing the guitar or he was writing music. He was always creating. I remember going to his room a lot of times, and it was music books and song and notes and everything for his music. Because one of the memories I have is River's hair hanging down over his face and River hanging over a guitar. And so I remember seeing him a lot working on his music because he loved music.
According to him, it meant to him more than the acting. Like, for him, the music, he was more into music than into being an actor. He wanted to be a musician.
At 17, he got the chance to do just that. The family moved to Gainesville, a hippie town in Florida famous for its music scene. They bought a large ranch just outside the town and employed Dirk Drake as the family tutor. And when Dirk first met River, he recognized a passion for music.
I pulled up into the driveway, and there was a room that perhaps had been a garage, I'm not sure, but had big sliding glass doors, and I got out looking around. And when I came through, this teenage kid pops up, and he's got an Ovation guitar, and he's all excited to show me the engineering of it. I just remember thinking, this kid's a musician, he's so on it, and it was so important to him to share that guitar with me. Gainesville had a thriving music scene in the mid-1980s. This was the first place that the emerging punk rock, post-punk rock scene was happening, and I think putting the band together was a primary focus in coming here and finding musicians that would be complementary to the songs he'd written and the tastes that he had.
In 1988, River formed Alec Attic with his younger sister, Rain. He threw himself into writing, turned the garage into a rehearsal studio, and booked the band on a 2-week tour of the East Coast. He put everything into the band and secured a 2-year development deal with Island Records. If, in that time, the band could produce a good demo tape, they would finance an album. The band was River's plan for the future, and he desperately wanted to be taken seriously as a musician.
It was very difficult for River because he didn't want his name or his movie star status attached to his band's gigs. And it never seemed to fail. They'd get a gig at a club, and the proprietors of the club, I guess eager to get people through the gate, mentioned, you know, River Phoenix and his sister Rainbow. It was disappointing because he wanted his music to be taken for the music and not the music of the Hollywood star.
Any chance River got to prove that he wasn't just a teen actor with rock star pretensions, he leapt at. On his last day, he'd get such a chance. River is letting his hair down after being on set all day. He and his friends have left their hotel and are hitting the town. Just after midnight, Samantha, Rain, Joaquin and River arrive at the Viper Room, Johnny Depp's club on Sunset Strip. River has brought his guitar. In the corner of the club sits a small stage. Tonight, Johnny Depp's band will be playing. Among the lineup is Flea, bass player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and one of River's closest friends. River's planning to get up on stage and jam with some of the best musicians in town. For this, he's staying clean. Pleasant Gaiman, LA columnist, is also in the crowd.
It was very smoky and very crowded. It's a mixture of Hollywood hipsters and band people and people that just wanted to see Johnny Depp play in a band. You know, just, you know, some giggling, teeny boppy kind of girls. The rock scene then was really fertile in Los Angeles. It was, you know, there was a really hugely thriving underground rock scene, and the clubs had a decent crowd. They were very crowded, but they weren't overpacked with just people milling around not knowing what the hell was going on. The Viper Room, it was actually one of the first, like, cool clubs. It was trying not to be an underground shithole. There was, like, big, burly, giant security men there with earpieces and the whole velvet rope mentality, and it was really excessive. It was really Hollywood. It was really just gross.
Samantha, Rain, Joaquin and River find a booth at the back of the club. River's waiting to get on stage. The lineup tonight will include Al Jourgensen of Ministry, Gibby Haynes of the Butthole Surfers, and of course Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. River's happy. He's staying away from drugs so he can jam with his close friend Flea. But that's not going to happen. River and Flea had been great friends since they met 3 years earlier on the set of My Own Private Idaho. Flea, a sometime actor, had a small part in the film. Filming began in Portland, Oregon, and almost immediately cast and crew realized they were involved in something special. They worked hard, they played hard. River and many of the younger actors moved into director Gus Van Sant's house. The day's work on set would be followed by jam sessions late into the night. This footage was shot by River's friend, Matt Ebert.
When he and Flea met on Idaho, you know, they got along like, you know, brother and brother. Like, they just went arm in arm into the sunset with it. Like, they just, you know, played guitar together and really, like, you know, became really close friends almost immediately.
Flea was fascinated by River's talent as an actor, and River is a fantastic actor who is wanting to be a musician, so it's a natural attraction and a natural source of friendship and learning for each other.
He loved him. He loved Flea. River was crazy about Flea.
From this moment on, River and Flea became inseparable, and on his last day, Flea would be with River until the very end. Inside the Viper Room, River has made his way to the stage. He's expecting to join the band, but there's a problem. Homicide detective Mike Lee later pieced together the events of the evening.
What's going on? What?
When he arrived there were more than enough musicians, as there quite often is in that type of a situation, so he could not get up onto the stage and play that particular night.
Well, I got good news and bad news. You go first. Give me the bad news. Give me the good news. I love you. But you can't play the name. You're serious.
I heard through some of the people that we talked with that Flea was the one who said, no, you can't come up and play.
Play bass.
Mr. Phoenix was disappointed that he wasn't able to get up on and join in the jam session, and because of that disappointment, he elected to get into the drugs.
River idolized Flea as a person and a musician and was excited about playing side by side with him on stage. Now he's been shut out, he retreats into the crowd and begins to look for drugs.
If you were of a mind that you wanted to go in and party with drugs, they were available. And, you know, it was your choice, whatever you wanted to do. It was not at all hard to find drugs out on the Strip.
There was drugs everywhere. Probably the main things were cocaine and heroin. Plus, at the age of early to mid-20s, you still have the hallowed misconception that you're immortal, you know? You still look pretty, you don't really get a hangover, you know? I mean, you can, sure, I can do all of this, you know? It's not gonna have any consequences.
All right, you know what? I know what you need. I know what you need.
So I know that he was disappointed, and being disappointed in something I think we've all been there, where instead of reaching over and closing the door, you sometimes slam the door.
River is about to take the drugs that will kill him. My Own Private Idaho introduced River to Flea. It was also where his drug use first became dangerous. By 1989, River had played some interesting roles, but they were all safe, chosen for him by his mother and agent as suitable for the River Phoenix image. Yet River longed for something different, dangerous and adult, longed for a role he could call his own. The script for My Own Private Idaho offered that role. This was an art house film about male prostitutes based on a play by Shakespeare, about as different and edgy as River could have hoped for.
It was very, very cool at that point in time in youth culture to focus on the dark side and focus on the beautiful loser and the romantic lost boys and girls of our culture. And River was attracted to that and curious about it. And this was his chance to jump into it.
His character, Mike Waters, was a heroin-addicted rent boy, and River was determined to do the part justice. With his personal assistant, Matt Ebert, River spent days hanging with rent boys on the streets of Portland, Oregon.
Now we're mixing ourselves up with street kids and, you know, boys and girls, young boys and girls, and the drug element is there. We have dealers, we have Johns, we have, you know, we're kind of on the underbelly of all of Portland, trying to scrape up some history. We're going to bookshops and, you know, little bathhouses and, you know, looking for any kind of seedy. We're looking for it because we have to recreate it. We have to, you know, do it, and we want to do it right. We don't want to just, you know, invent, you know, this for an audience. We want to create, we want to reflect it. And we want to do it honestly. He was really into research. He was very big on, like, okay, I got to learn all about these characters. We'd go into what they call Vaseline Alley, and we'd meet street hustlers, and we'd take them home and we'd interview them.
Here I am walking in the motel room in my bathtub in the morning. I stand next to you, and I say, so you're gonna take your pants off. What is your reaction?
Mind-boggling stuff, you know, like the lives you would run into with this. And you're thinking, you know, here I am with this. We're actually doing, you know, trying to find out what it's like to do that, you know, what these kids actually have to go through. And a lot of it was really painful, you know. And I think that while it can feed an actor, it also can be dangerous. You know, the closer you come to a really dangerous environment and a situation, the closer that environment gets to you, too.
One of the fundamentals of acting is research. You know, there's a certain amount you can bring from within, but then there's a lot you need from without. And when we were on the streets of Idaho, and he was acting, and we were all acting with street kids who were literally heroin addicts, and you knew they were heroin addicts because they had tracks in their hands, and they talked about it on the film. So that River would try that would be, I can't imagine him not trying that, actually. I mean, being as young as he was, and as brave as he was.
Depending on how you're looking at it.
River had drunk before, smoked some dope, snorted some coke, but all was in moderation. Now he knew no restraints. As the parties at Gus's rolled on night after night, his drug use escalated.
Because I feel there's a theme.
Xanax, Valium, Vicodin, Percodan, Percocet, you know, drug after drug after pill after pill after pill, smoking pot, drinking alcohol, snorting cocaine, snorting heroin or smoking heroin. We did a lot of drugs. You know, we did a lot of drugs.
What had started as character research was now becoming much more dangerous.
We're not made of Teflon. We're skin and bones. And, you know, I think that's when, you know, that's when his addiction really started to take off.
However hard he battled it, the urge would always be there. In moments of stress or anxiety, the temptation would be hard to resist. The Viper Room, the club which will become infamous in less than 1 hour, is nearing capacity as Johnny Depp's band gets going. Upset that he couldn't get on stage and jam with Flea, Rivers scored some drugs. He heads into the bathroom to collect.
Here he is coming off a period of a dry spell where he's working on a movie that's not going well. And he's frustrated and he needs release and he needs to relax. And all he can think of to do is, you know, go out and get loaded.
Rain, Joaquin and Rivers' girlfriend, Samantha Mathis, are in a booth at the back of the club. They're completely unaware of the horror that's about to unfold.
He ingested a quantity of drug that appeared to be heroin and cocaine in powder form. It appears that it was snorted, and the reaction was almost immediate.
River has snorted a speedball, cocaine and heroin mixed together.
When it works great. When it doesn't work, you die. That's like Russian roulette.
Several sources told me that the words were, this is too much, or words to that effect, too much, too much.
River is clearly in trouble. Someone offers him a Valium to calm him down. His heart is beating wildly, misfiring. The cocaine causing it to race out of control, the heroin telling it to slow. He stumbles out into the bar. He has just 1 hour to live. River's drug habit really took hold after My Own Private Idaho. He began to spend more and more time in LA. Part of the reason was his growing friendship with Flea. But LA was dangerous for River. The crowds he ran with partied hard.
It's hard to be young and cool and hip in Los Angeles with money and time and shitloads of exotic drugs at your disposal. There's a point at which drugs, sex, rock and roll can be personally, maybe culturally, artistically rewarding, and there's a point where they can be very destructive. And River was finding those boundaries.
More often than not, River was crossing those boundaries.
My band, the Ringling Sisters, was holding we used to do annual orphanage benefits. Anyway, at one of them we were having at the Roxy. There was a really cute boy passed out backstage in the hallway and just getting worse and worse, like sweating and just, looking like he wasn't getting up. And I was like running around being a stage manager and making, doing raffles with the audience and stuff. And finally, I looked down and I'm like, who is that really cute and really fucked up boy that's laying on the floor? We have to get him out of here. And someone said, that's River Phoenix. I'm like, that's River Phoenix? Jesus.
In the periods between Idaho and going back to Oregon to work on Even Cowgirls Get the Blues and seeing him then, it was taking its toll. The drugs were definitely beating him down. And, his skin was getting bad, his hair was getting bad. Everything just looked rougher and, more ripped up.
River's family were concerned about his visible deterioration and confronted him. But River refused to admit he had a problem.
They were such a beautiful spiritual family and so supportive of him in so many ways. But, like most families, I think a little painfully unaware of the realities that he was going through in terms of the drug addiction.
The family home had always been River's refuge. It was a place he could rest, recuperate, and clean up. But life at home had changed. The family was now attracting hordes of hangers-on. Many of them had drug habits and just wanted to party with the young movie star. Temptation was everywhere.
I turned to River and said, a lot of these people are not very well educated and they're completely reactionary and they're just partying hardy and living a glamorous life from one moment to the next. And if they're fucking their lives up, it's not your responsibility and you shouldn't enable that. And if they're fucking your life up, then it's your responsibility to detach yourself from that.
By his last year, River was working hard to clean up his act. But the temptation was always there. Clean periods were always followed by a binge. River's life became a struggle.
Those months were tough. They were tough on everybody who was hovering around the supernova, because it all of a sudden just exploded and was gone.
Inside the Viper room, River has just taken a massive overdose of cocaine and heroin. His body is struggling to survive, but he can still be saved. He just needs help, fast. River Phoenix has less than an hour to live. He's gone to the Viper room on LA's Sunset Strip. His sister Rain, brother Joaquin, and girlfriend Samantha Mathis are in a booth drinking. They think River's on stage getting ready to jam with friends. Actually, he's been shut out of the jam session and, disappointed, has just snorted a massive speedball, cocaine and heroin combined. River's body has gone into shock.
It's one thing to use heroin and cocaine and everything on a daily basis. Your system becomes used to it. Your tolerance stays the same. But when you start and stop and start and stop and start and stop and then always go back to where you left off, you run the risk of overdosing and killing yourself. He was a kid. Kids make mistakes.
Back at the table, River's having a difficult time. It's obvious he's not feeling well, but no one's aware of the effects that the drugs are having on his internal organs. Toxicologist Dan Anderson later analyzed River's blood.
There was a very significant amount of heroin and cocaine in his system. There was so much cocaine there, it's astronomical. It's 8 times what we consider lethal. He either didn't realize the purity of the drug and took his standard amount that he normally took, or he took way too much. A body can only tolerate so much. And after that tolerance is over with, you're gonna die of the drug.
What started out as a fun family reunion is rapidly turning into a nightmare. By his last year, River's drug use had hit its peak. Friends and family pleaded with him to get clean. He started to listen, and the periods between binges grew longer. He began working on a new music project with Sasa Raphael. In April, River was approached about a new film, Dark Blood, but there were worries that his drug use had taken too large a toll and he needed to rest.
I called River more or less every 2 weeks when he was in Florida. And I wanted to know if he was okay and if he was still in a good mood, if he still liked the story. A little bit, if you want, not to check, but to feel how he was. And I was aware, obviously, that he had been taken drugs before. I was hoping that he would be, I would say, calm.
River's father, John, had recently moved to a farm in Costa Rica, but he realized there was a problem and intervened.
His father flew up from his farm, and he never does that. He did at this time. He was just was not interested in coming to this part of the world at all. But he flew up specifically to convince his son not to go film the next movie.
John was just saying, give it a break. I would hope that you can get back to the garden. Take a break. Don't do any more projects for a while. Come live in Costa Rica. Work in the garden. Let's get back to being a family.
But River wanted to work with co-star Judy Davis, whom he admired so much. And he was the family breadwinner. He had some 30 people to support. He decided to do the movie. For 7 weeks, the cast and crew of Dark Blood lived and worked in the middle of the Utah desert. All that time, River stayed clean.
I was quite busy, so that there were many times when I started to get the feeling I am so busy with, the preparation of the shoot and the cameras and the this and the that I was not spending maybe enough time with River.
Finally, the location wrapped, and the production was moved back to LA for 2 weeks in the studio. River was heading back to Partyland. He took his leave from director George Slouser.
Before leaving, he said, okay, bye, going back to the bad, bad town of LA. And I didn't realize what he meant with the word bad. Unfortunately, only after its death, I started to understand what the implications were in the word for him.
4 days later, River would snort the speedball that killed him. Inside the club, River has been suffering badly from a drug overdose, vomiting and passing out. At first, Rain and Joaquin weren't aware of just how bad things had got, but as his condition worsens, they drag him outside for some air. As soon as River's body hits the street, he goes into seizures. The vegan with the squeaky clean image is now dying of a drug overdose.
The people around him at that time, it was a kid, his brother, young kid, Joaquin, and he's dying in front of them, and they don't know what to do. And the people in the bar don't know what to do. They watch this celebrity move around, and they watch this famous person. Do we say something is happening to this famous person? The fame itself kept him from getting what he needed to live.
Whether the fact that River is a celebrity, or the fact that drugs are involved, or the fact that they're terrified by this sudden turn of events, the result is the same. No one calls for an ambulance for a full 5 minutes. Finally, Joaquin takes action. All 911 calls are recorded. This is Joaquin's call.
Yeah, he's having seizures on Sunset and Larrabee. Please come here.
Okay, calm down a little bit, okay? What's the address where you need us?
It's Sunset and Larrabee. It's at the Viper Room. He's laying on the cement.
Is he breathing?
I don't know. The last I checked, they said he was breathing. Is he fucking breathing? I don't know if he's breathing. Please, you gotta get over here with the ambulance.
Who's with him right now?
My sister and some people.
Your sister?
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk to her from where you are?
Oh, God, she's trying to give him mouth to mouth. Please get over here, please.
Calm down, okay? Sir, calm down. Tell her not to give mouth.
It's 4 more minutes before the paramedics arrive. River is lying still. His seizures have stopped and his breathing is shallow. The speedball is attacking his heart. Beating wildly out of sync, his heart is failing, pumping little or no blood. He's running out of time.
River Phoenix was lying on the sidewalk, unresponsive, with a couple of friends around him. And he was pulseless, he was non-breathing, and had no heart activity. We immediately started CPR, intubated him to control his airway, and started an IV, and gave him a series of drugs in an attempt to restart his heart.
Back at the Hotel Nico, 2 of River's closest friends, Dickie and Abby Rude, have no idea their friend is in trouble.
We got a phone call at the hotel, a hysterical phone call. I can't remember from who, whether it was his brother or his sister. We jumped in the car and rushed up the street. It wasn't that far away, but it was a terrifying shock. A terrifying shock to see your best friend lying on the sidewalk with paramedics standing over him and a crowd of people around dressed up in Halloween costumes, and it was just incomprehensible for me.
Having failed to restart his heart, the paramedics prepare to transport the lifeless young actor to the closest emergency room. News of the incident has spread into the club. Flea runs outside and demands to travel with River to the hospital. But it's too late for River Jude Phoenix. He's pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m., October 31st, 1993.
I remember when I heard about it, I remember where I was. I remember being just devastated, you know, that he died that way, you know. And I was surprised, despite thinking that I wouldn't be surprised.
I've heard people say it was his time and he was ready to go, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit. He loved life and he cherished and nurtured life around him, and I'm sure his own would have been right there with it as something cherished and nurtured.
I went with his sister and we brought his ashes home. And I remember this as long as I live. I gave his ashes to his mother, and she held them like a baby. And it was one of the most tragic things I've ever seen in my life.
He's become a kind of mystical being in people's lives, somebody that inspires them, not because of his tragedy, but because of that quality that he had, which was always spiritual, so that when you see him, that magical thing didn't die with him.
He was a good friend. he brought out the best in you. And I miss him a lot.